There's a certain feeling you only get when you're truly alone in the wilderness. You're miles from anyone, and it's so quiet you can literally hear your own heart beating. It's one of those places where profound peace and just primal fear are right next to each other.
So, let me ask you a question. What's the absolute scariest sound you could possibly hear in a totally empty forest? Is it, a twig snapping behind you? Maybe the howl of a wolf somewhere in the distance? The wind kind of whispering through the trees? Yeah, all of those are pretty unsettling for sure. But the real answer is something way more personal. And honestly, 100 times more terrifying. Because that one sound, it changes everything. In an instant, the wilderness isn't empty anymore, and you are not alone. So today, we're going to dive into 3 true stories from people who heard those footsteps and somehow survived to tell us about the horror that came next. Okay, so our first story comes from a freelance land surveyor. This is a guy who not only works completely solo in these super remote spots for days at a time, but he actually prefers it that way. Or at least he used to. He's miles deep in the mountains of Idaho when this sudden, heavy snowstorm just rolls in. The ground quickly becomes this minefield of hidden ice and rocks. And then it happens. One wrong step on a slick patch of ice, he slides about 15 feet and feels this searing, blinding pain in his ankle. Just like that, he's injured, barely able to walk, and a long, long way from any kind of safety. He's now completely vulnerable.
So as he's painfully trying to make his way back toward his camp, this deep sense of dread starts to creep in. First, he spots a fresh set of boot tracks on the trail ahead of him. Odd. Then, as the sun starts to go down, he hears it. Footsteps. Behind him. He stops. They stop. Then he realizes the tracks in the trail are gone, because whoever is following him is now shadowing him from just inside the tree line, moving parallel to him in the dark.
He finally makes it to the relative safety of his tent, but any relief he feels is gone in a second. The footsteps don't leave. Instead, they start to circle his campsite, over and over, in the pitch-black darkness. Can you imagine that kind of psychological terror? There's absolutely nothing he can do but just sit there, injured, listening as this presence closes in.
After what feels like an absolute eternity of this torment, the footsteps stop. Silence. The surveyor knows this is his chance. He has to make a run for it. He takes a deep breath, unzips the tent, and steps outside. And that's when he sees him, just standing there, silently, at the edge of the woods, staring. And the man, he describes him as shockingly old and sickly, almost grotesque, like he was on the verge of death himself.
Our surveyor is completely helpless, just bracing for an attack. But instead, after this long, terrifying silence, the strange man speaks. Just 4 words. You're a lucky man. Then he just turns and disappears back into the woods. Lucky why? Lucky he wasn't attacked? Or lucky for some other, darker reason? He didn't stick around to find out. All right, for our next story, we're heading way up north into the massive, unforgiving winter of Alaska. This is about a seasoned wilderness guide and her boyfriend, Randy. Both of them are total professionals. But in a place like this, experience, it can only get you so far.
They're out on their snowmobiles when this sudden, violent blizzard just hits them out of nowhere. Visibility drops to practically 0. In all the chaos, Randy's snowmobile flips and his leg is crushed underneath it. The injury is bad, really bad. His leg was bent in a way legs should not bend. So now they're stranded in a blizzard with a life-threatening emergency.
They realize pretty quickly there's no way she can move him. And this leads to an absolutely impossible choice. She has to leave him there, bundled up against the storm, and make a desperate solo ride to the nearest stake cabin to try and radio for help. His life is completely in her hands now. In the storm, she gets completely disoriented and lost. But then, through the swirling snow, she sees it, smoke. It leads her to this small, unlisted cabin. Inside, there's a fire going, but the place is totally empty. And this is where the story takes a really terrifying turn. She finds a map with all the official cabins circled and a notebook. And it is filled with dated entries describing travelers in the area, what they were wearing, where they were going. It's very likely that she and Randy were in that book. Someone was watching people out here. This deep, cold sense of dread just washes over her. This isn't a shelter, it's a hunting blind. She turns to run, to get out of there, but before she can even touch the door, she hears the most terrifying sound of her entire life. A woman, screaming at the top of her lungs, from directly underneath the floorboards of the cabin she was standing in. She ran. She just ran. She eventually did find the real cabin and Randy was rescued, but she is left forever haunted by 3 horrible possibilities. 1, was the stress and the cold so bad that she actually hallucinated the whole thing? 2, did she abandon a real person to a horrific fate down there? Or 3, did she stumble into a predator's trap and just barely escape with her own life?
Our last story, this one's different. The horror here doesn't come from some random stranger in the woods. It comes from the deeply unsettling possibility of being led into danger by someone you think you know. It all starts with a high school kid and his obsession with this mysterious girl named Sienna.
This is how the narrator described her. She was alluring, but also really distant, kind of cold and hard to read. He was just fascinated by her whole vibe, this quiet intensity that nobody else seemed to see. And, well, this fascination would lead him straight into the most terrifying experience of his life.
So he asks her out, and to his total shock, she says yes, but she organizes everything. She picks this remote trail he's never even heard of. And while they're hiking, she confidently leads him down this unmaintained, overgrown fork in the path. Then, while he's walking just a little bit ahead of her, she just vanishes, silently, gone. He calls her name, thinking it's some kind of joke. He hears a little noise deeper in the woods, sees some movement behind a tree. So he thinks, okay, I'll play along, I'll turn the tables on her. He sneaks up to the tree and jumps out to surprise her. But his playful yell just dies in his throat, because standing there is not Sienna. It's a tall, middle-aged man just staring at him with a completely blank expression.
Full-on panic mode kicks in. The narrator starts backing away, trying to get to the main trail, but then he hears another sound. He looks over, and a second man is standing there, blocking his only way out, and he's holding a heavy tree branch like it's a club. It was an ambush, no question. And he just bolts, scrambling through the thick forest as both men chase him. At one point, he's tackled. One of them grabs his ankle, but with a huge surge of adrenaline, he kicks himself free and just keeps running, not stopping, not looking back until he bursts out of the woods, bloody and absolutely terrified, back into the parking lot. But here's where it gets really, really creepy. Sienna's car is still there, and as he's about to call the police, she just casually walks out of the woods, completely calm, not a scratch on her. Her excuse for where she'd been is flimsy, it makes no sense at all. The trail she picked, that specific path she chose, the timing of her disappearance. He's left to wonder forever, did she lead him there on purpose?
So what do all these stories really tell us? There's one chilling theme that runs through all of them. When you strip away all of civilization, the most dangerous animal out there isn't a bear or a mountain lion. It's the unpredictable and sometimes the truly evil nature of other people. But in the end, the most terrifying part of these encounters isn't just what happened. It's the ambiguity. It's what you don't know. Our brains are wired to find patterns, to get to a conclusion. And when we're denied an answer, the story just never ends in our head. It's the questions that you can never, ever answer. Those are the things that will haunt you long after you've left the woods.